The season for layoffs has arrived. According to reports, Meta is preparing massive layoffs. Lyft laid off approximately 700 employees. The fintech behemoth Stripe laid off 14% of its staff. According to industry analysts, these are only the headlines from the past week, and this is likely only the beginning. Today, in this video, we will discuss 1. How did we get here? 2. What is occurring now? 3. What occurs next? However, before we continue, please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel. At the same time that tech companies are beginning to plan for the following year, earnings are declining. And with gloomy economic prospects, tech companies are beginning to tighten their belts, starting with employee reductions to save wage expenses. This means that thousands of tech workers may be unemployed in the coming weeks. How did we get here? As major technology businesses reported less than stellar earnings over the previous few weeks, they also issued cautionary signals for the upcoming months. Companies reported that the looming possibility of a recession was leading customers to reduce their spending, with few signs of a comeback on the horizon. This means that in the coming weeks and months, these companies will seek to cut costs wherever possible. Typically, when a company reduces expenses, labor costs and advertising are the first to go. In order to predict what their numbers will look like, they must consider the trend in advertising spending on their platforms. When that doesn't look good, they must adjust their workforces to accommodate those expectations. Instigated by the epidemic, the tech industry is emerging from an era of explosive growth. As the IT industry readjusts to a period when people aren't addicted to their devices at home, what's occurring now is a form of correction. And even though in many cases layoffs began earlier this year, both at startups and big tech firms, sometimes they didn't go far enough. In cycles such as these, it is common for companies to not lay off enough workers, opting instead to limit hiring in the belief that natural churn will right-size them. As Q3 drew to a close, which was far more challenging than Q2, it became abundantly clear how many headwinds there were, and companies realized they cannot grow out of this with their current team and must lay off employees. What is occurring now? For some businesses, these economic concerns coincide with their preparations for the upcoming fiscal year. For example, Amazon, Meta, and Google have fiscal years that end in late 2022 or early 2023. They may be attempting to eliminate expenses from their balance sheets before the end of the fiscal year. For instance, if an employee is laid off now and given 6 weeks of severance, this reduces first quarter expenses. Even if employees receive a longer severance, such as 3 months, their salaries will be removed from the books at the end of the first quarter. Microsoft, for example, just conducted layoffs, and its fiscal year ends in June. Yet, there is an aspect of budget planning at play. This is somewhat bad since it means that a certain number of people will lose their employment before the holidays and the new year. In other aspects, though, some businesses may just be playing follow the leader, gauging economic conditions in part based on what other businesses are doing. Observing other organizations that are peers, not necessarily competitors, but similar to yours in the technology industry could prompt you to exclaim, now is the moment. In Silicon Valley, there is a degree of groupthink. What occurs next? With Thanksgiving rapidly approaching, the next 2 weeks are crucial. This is due to the fact that corporations may not want to lay off staff during the holiday season, since doing so could destroy corporate morale, immobilize the employees who were retained, and impact future hiring. The top talent don't want to work for the organizations that kind of indiscriminately and without any empathy lay people off at the first indication of difficulties, which means that if tech corporations want to execute layoffs, the next 2 weeks are the moment to rip the bandage off or risk not only keeping those costs on their profit and loss statements heading into the next quarter, but adding on these secondary consequences. Some planning could alleviate this severance would help lessen the pain, as would assisting laid-off staff in finding new positions, as Airbnb did in 2020, but the timing still depends on how individual companies will decide to plan. There is a mechanism in place, but I did not believe the approach is particularly focused on not disappointing people around Christmas. If you enjoyed today's video, then feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to our channel.